Hello and welcome to ICND2. My name is Jeremy Chara. I'll be hanging out with you for this entire series, which is going to be a blast. This is always the last nugget that I record of the series, so I know everything that's in here, and I know you're going to walk away just being like, man, I just like enrich is just the word that just keeps coming to my mind. Like ICND2 was a ton of information, but there's so much information you just really can't go in depth with anything. So I was just trying to think of a word that describes the series, just enriching, to where you just have a much better big picture scope of how all these things fit together. So in this first nugget, what I'd like to do is just go through the Cisco certification track, just give you kind of a feel if you're one of the people really focused in getting certified, some things to be aware of, some study tactics that you might want to use for the exam. I'm not going to overlap a lot of what I've done in the ICND1 series because I started it the same way. Talk a little bit about CCNA 2013, what has been new as Cisco has gone through. This is now the 4th revision of CCNA that I've recorded for CBT Nuggets because it's their flagship certification, and Cisco keeps making it better and better and better and more and more and more over the years. And then finally, I'm going to talk about how you can get the most from this or any CBT Nuggets series. The core of the Cisco certification program looks like what you see on the screen right here. Now, I was very intentional to say core because there are other certifications. Like there's a CCNA service provider. I'll put SP. There's CCNA data center. There's CCNA wireless. I mean, there's you can just pigeonhole yourself in Cisco and never leave and still never learn all of it. There's just so many network technologies that are available, but this is the core of it all. CCENT, or more specifically, ICND1. That's the certification exam that you take to get your CCENT certification, is required as a prerequisite for all of us. Now, most people will statistically pursue routing and switching first. This is a common question I get. People say, well, would you suggest that even if I want to go for the CCNP voice and all that I first go down this direction? And my thought is, honestly, I would really suggest that you do a CCNA routing and switching and then jump into this. Because like I said, to start it all off, it just enriches your foundation. CCENT is just so much, so fast that I just think, man, you really have to either combine that with a lot of real world experience or get the full CCNA before you can really have that like that. Like there's a word I can't even say. It's like just the good core. I feel warm and fuzzy about all things Cisco. There's a word somewhere. I just can't remember what it would be. Before you dive into voice or security or any of the other tracks. Now, each exam and certification has an expiration of 3 years. That means if you take CCENT, you have now, or take ICND1, you now have a CCENT for 3 years. As you move on and pass this, it automatically renews any equal or lower level certification. So for instance, if I have the CCNA routing and switching and then I go past CCNA voice, I now renew this and my CCENT for 3 years. Cisco makes it really easy to renew. Of course, you can always retake the same exam that you did 3 years ago, but why would you want to do that? I mean, if you're going to take an exam, just go one step further and get that. Same thing if you move into the CCNP, all you have to do is pass one CCNP exam, and it automatically renews all your lower level certification again for 3 years. So it makes it really easy to keep current as long as you keep on learning. I'm at the point where I have all of these along with a CCIE and routing and switching, and all I have to do, this is every 2 years, is just every 2 years take that exam, and it automatically renews all of my lower level certs for an additional 3 years, so I don't have to go retake all of these certification exams all the time. So now let me take some time to focus specifically on ICND1 and ICND2 for the new CCNA. Now, ICND1, I'm assuming you've already had that because it's the prerequisite before you get here. So just had a lot of stuff added. I mean, just stuff that you wouldn't even think would be added to an entry-level certification like command line NAT and access lists and VLANs and OSPF, IPv6. I mean, this kind of stuff, like the stuff I've underlined right there, it's like, wow, somebody who's working at a convenience store is like, I think I'm going to get in technology. I would be like, wow, the barrier of entry to learn this stuff. Not that it's not possible, but it's just like, that's some deep stuff to throw at somebody who's just getting into the network field. But I'm not going to spend too much time on ICND1. So I would just say ICND1, what they did is just add a lot of stuff of what it was previously. As I mentioned, I've been through 4 CCNA revisions now since I've been in Cisco, and this by far is the most stuff I've ever seen added to the certification. But that then begs the question, let's focus where we are now. ICND2, what's up with this? What's been added here? Honestly, I wouldn't say, like, added isn't the right word to use. It again takes me back to that word at the very beginning, like enrich or depth of ICND2 information that's there. So when I started looking at the exam, looking at the topics, seeing kind of the direction Cisco is going, it really is encompassed with this first statement: more troubleshooting. To where we just have a lot more scenarios. Instead of just doing like, okay, give me a configuration that would accomplish this, it's more of like, this is broken. What's wrong with this picture? Because Cisco knows that troubleshooting is the ultimate depth of knowledge. Like, you can read a book a lot of times and figure out how to configure a VLAN on a Cisco switch because you type in these 3 commands and it works every time. But to know how to troubleshoot something when it's broken means you not only know how to configure it, but you're able to spot things or understand things that is out of place. I just had the thought cross my mind. I think I shared this later on in the series, but I'll share it again now, just to give you an idea of the ICND2 feel. I was talking to a friend recently, just about IT in general. We were just driving in the car together, and he goes, "You're not a real IT person until you have assumed the fetal position under a desk." And I go, "It's so true." Like, the IT can be the best career in the world, but there are those times, those days where everything's down, you don't know what to do, and you, like, everybody's screaming, everybody's like, we're down, we're losing money, the company is riding on your shoulder. What are you going to do to fix it? And you're just like, I don't know. You just like assume fetal position. And so when I took this exam, I'm trying to think of how I can say this without stepping on any non-disclosure agreements and all that kind of thing. But when I took the exam, like, that's the feeling I got. I'm like, man, I don't think I would know the answer to this question unless I'd actually been through that before, unless I'd actually seen, like, bam, that router explode and a spanning tree loop happening, and I saw these console messages. Like, unless I've actually been there, done that, which I guess it's a good certification exam because it's testing not only do you know the book knowledge, can you configure this, but it's also testing a lot of, like, have you been there before? Have you done that? And that's going to go more into my exam recommendations too. But again, what else have they added? More switching, more spanning tree, a lot of spanning tree yeah, a lot of spanning tree. More routing. We get into OSPF v3 in here, although I wouldn't, if I were spending my study time, I wouldn't focus too heavily on the IPv6 technologies, although, anything's possible. It's on the exam outline, all that kind of stuff. Still today, to this day, IPv4 still rules the world, and it will for the foreseeable, at least near future, until the next revision of CCNA. So really spend your time a lot more on the IPv4. Ooh, this is good. As a matter of fact, I just recorded this nugget a couple days ago. So good that they added management technologies to where you can actually do bandwidth monitoring, use SolarWinds or PRTG or one of these tools that you can generate graphs of what your bandwidth utilization looks like, and who is, when somebody's like, the internet connection's slow, you can actually say, well, here is who is sitting on YouTube all day watching movies at the workplace to suck all our internet bandwidth, and you can identify that person with NetFlow. So a lot of good stuff there. More scandal prevention. Cisco's locked down with iOS 15. They've added iOS licensing, so we talk a lot more about that. So let me now wrap up by telling you how to get the most from this series and how I think would be the best way to prepare for this ICND2 certification exam. As always with CBT Nuggets, it is online all the time. You can just repeat, constantly go through it. Somebody told me once that when you hear something, after 3 months, you will remember 2% of the information that you hear, unless you do something else to solidify it. So I say repeat, but also combine that with taking notes, writing down key informations. I mean, I am the first one that has, that gloss over feel that if I'm not participating, if I'm just listening, I'm gonna gloss over really quick, and I've got to do something. I mean, I've been in meetings and it's awkward for everybody when I do this, but I'll push my chair back from the table and I'll just stand up and I'm just kind of standing there, kind of pacing in circles, because otherwise my alternative is literally I'll put my head on my hand. I'll be like doing that bob head nodding thing because I'm just sitting here in a meeting. Nothing's really being asked of me, so I have to almost do exercises to keep myself awake when I'm doing that. So I'm telling you, do that same kind of thing. Take notes. This is my number one thing that I do. I will just pull open a yellow pad, one of those big pads of paper, grab a pen, and just as I'm hearing somebody talk, I'm drawing what they're drawing. I'm just thinking of, there's another guy, another trainer at CBT Nuggets named Garth. He actually he's a developer, and he developed this what do you call it, like CBT Sketch or CBT Draw, where there would be like an on-screen little pad where you could draw things as you're watching the CBT Nuggets. I'm curious if CBT Nuggets will actually implement that, because obviously not everybody has a monitor that they can draw on, like I'm doing right now. You're drawing with your mouse is a little tougher. But anyway, the reason that he's thinking that way is he thinks a lot like me. If I'm not doing something, if I'm just sitting there and I don't have something to write on or draw on, I'm not typing in commands, I'm going to fall asleep. So I will tell you, take notes, write things down, not just to create a note sheet, but just to keep yourself engaged. Okay. Stop it all right here. Build a lab. This is my biggest recommendation. Now, ICND1, right? I recommended that people build a lab not using GNS3. GNS3.net is a emulator of Cisco software where you can actually boot the router iOS on your computer and actually work with the real iOS software, typing in all the commands. They all work virtually, so it works pretty well. But I recommended in ICND1 that you not use that, at least at the ICND1 level, because a lot of times people haven't seen a router. They don't know what a switches. They don't know what it's like to snap a cable into an Ethernet port and hear that click and see it fall out and have the clip break off and it dangles and causes a flat. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff, at least in the beginning physically, that I would say you just need some physical gear for. So if you have that same physical gear now, well, go ahead and use it. But I would say at this point, you're okay to jump into GNS3. As if you were waiting for my approval, right? I approve that you jump into GNS3, because now ICND1, you've got the physical, you've seen it enough. Now you're a remote administrator, right? You've escalated to the echelon of sitting at a cubicle and typing in commands on remote devices instead of plugging into the console port. So GNS3 will work well for this series, but I just can't emphasize enough. When I took this exam, when I take the exams, I'm not taking them to pass, although of course I'm always like, oh, I gotta pass. But I'm taking them just to see kind of the feel and kind of the way that I can communicate. And I gotta emphasize again, when I was going through this exam, I was just like, wow. Like, I don't want to, don't hear me say, oh, it's hard, it's so difficult. Like, I don't like when people say that, just because it's discouraging. And what does that mean? It's hard. Well, that's relative. So what I'm saying is, just going through the exam, I was like, it just. Yeah, I was every question that I saw, I was like, wow, really, wow. It's just the feel that if you haven't been there, done that, if you haven't seen a lot of cause and effect and what happens when I do this, and what happens when I mistype that, or what happens when I put in the wrong network statement, or what happens, like it's a lot of that kind of feel. Like I was like, wow, if you really hadn't seen this isn't I looked and Googled the answer to this. It's more of like I've done that. So spending some time in the lab when you're going through, one of the things that I do, I'll start this entire series off by doing an ICND1 review lab. I actually created the topology in GNS3. I'm going to make those files available for download so you can grab them from CBT Nuggets and build it yourself. And I would say use that topology. It took me a long time to build it and start creating the labs. I created these lab scenarios for people to do. Build that and do it, and then go beyond. I mean, start creating your own. And I know there are all kind of community forums out there where people are putting together their own labs. I've actually seen some people emailed me links where people have built their own GNS3 models of my labs. And then they even took it beyond. They said, okay, well, Jeremy stopped here. I'm going to create a lab on frame relay, So anyway, I would suggest just looking around for GNS3 labs and just doing a lot of them that are relevant to the topics that you're going to see in this series. So study hard, obviously. Okay, you're right. Dig deeper and fall in love. This is the same as what I was saying in ICND1. The only way that you're going to be really good in this career is if you really love it. I started a company 4 years ago that does IT services for schools and small businesses, and I hired my brother. Now my brother was well, I don't want to go into his history, but he wasn't an IT guy when I hired him. And just the other day, I was walking him through setting up a voice over IP system for a customer. He was actually on site, and I was like, okay, we got to set up their auto attendant where it's the press one for this, press two for that. And so I'm walking him through typing in the commands to do it, and he's like, oh, wait a sec. So if I do this, do that, and he's like, okay, I totally get it. And he's like, that was awesome. And I was like, Josh, that's my brother's name. I was like, Josh, you've arrived. Welcome to nerddom. And that's the kind of thing that I want you to do. I want you to do this kind of stuff. That's why I'm so avid on doing these labs, is to where when you have that discovery process for yourself to where you're like, that was awesome. And then you want to tell somebody, then you want to do it again, and you want to add all these pieces to it to make it. It's like building your IT is building your own little world. It's amazing. So anyway, that's what I mean by fall in love. Just realize the awesomeness of this career, and then nothing will stop you. All right, last thing I'll say is, and I know this is going to sound cheesy, but at the risk of sounding cheesy, I am excited for you. There is so much cool, fun stuff in this series that I know by the time it's said and done, you're going to be like, that was so good. I'm so ready to jump into this. I'm ready, whatever you're looking to do, ready to take the exam, ready to make, redesign the network at work. I've got such better ideas now for the network. Whatever your goals are, I know that this is really going to help, and you're really going to get a lot out of it. All right. Well, I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.